I was in a coercively controlling marriage without even realizing it because I had never heard of coercive control before. And I'm really passionate about sharing specific examples that I experienced of coercive control to help other people recognize what this is, understand what it is, how it develops, and how damaging it is. Over time, I've been making a comprehensive list of examples of coercive control that I experienced, and I want to share them with others to help people avoid this type of relationship, and just to understand what it is and what it can look like. So quick context, I'm from LA, born and raised. My ex is from a different state, and we met in Colorado. I had moved to Colorado a year after I graduated college just to try something new, live somewhere new. I had gotten a job out there, and he was at the job that I was working at in accounting. And so we met very quickly right after I moved to Colorado, and we moved very quickly in our relationship. When we were first dating, I went home to his home state really soon. This was for Thanksgiving, a couple months after we had started dating. So it was really soon, and I was nervous because I was meeting his entire extended family, all his friends. He has a huge family, and I come from a small family, so it was really intimidating. But I was like, this is gonna be great. I get along with people really easily, so I was game for it. And we went home to his home state, met his family, everything was great. And then we were going out with his friends one night. I was gonna go meet all of his friends. And that night we went out in the city, and we went to I think we went to someone's house first, and then we went to a bar, and he convinced me that I got drunk and was flirting with his best friend and was getting really handsy with him. And I know for a fact I had one, maybe two drinks, and there's no way I was drunk. We were also coming from high altitude to zero altitude, so it didn't even make sense, but I had no reason to not believe him, and I was like, there's no way he would make that up, right? So I was like, wow, I must have gotten drunk and just not known, and not remembered, maybe I blacked out. I was so confused, but I just was like, I guess that happened. I'm so sorry. I apologized profusely to him, and he was giving me the silent treatment the next day. And this just really set the stage for how I operated in social settings with him, especially around other men. And that was kind of the main insecurity I think he had, was me around other men. And he was just very, very insecure about me being a flirty person, just naturally flirty and flirting with everybody. And I just believed it. I was like, I'm a very friendly person, and I'm like, if I'm friendly, I guess that is flirty in a way. After that, I just was caught off guard, and I was like, I guess need to be more careful in social situations, and I need to monitor myself, monitor how much I'm drinking, and it really just kept me on my toes. Why on earth would I think he would lie about that? I didn't ever think anyone would make that up. We worked together at our accounting job, and there was a coworker that he always accused me of flirting with. I'm a very nice person. I'm very social and outgoing, and I make a lot of jokes and mess around a lot. And again, I just was like, I guess I'm flirting without realizing it. I guess joking around with guys is flirty. I was always monitoring myself, how I was behaving around other guys, and I was just hyper vigilant of what I was saying, my body language, how I was operating and moving around other guys. And it just really made me not want to be around other guys when I was with him, because I was so embarrassed. I guess I'm flirting with all these guys, and I had no idea. Maybe I am leading guys on, and maybe I am giving them the wrong impression, and I just totally believed it. I'd go hang out with friends, and he would ask what time I'm gonna be home, and I would be like, I don't really know, maybe whatever, 9 p.m. I would make up a time, estimate, and if I got home at a different time than estimated, later, he would get really mad, and he would say it was a joke. He was like, oh, I'm just joking, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter. But then I could kind of feel the anger that he had that I was out later than expected, and it just made me aware of the times I was coming home. So I really from then on kind of tried to honor the time that I estimated, and I would come home from hanging out with friends sooner than I wanted to because I felt like he was worried that I was doing something wrong. And it just made me feel like I was doing something wrong. It was harder to enjoy hanging out with friends. In the house we lived in for a couple years, we had no lock on our bathroom door. It was like a sliding barn door, and I set a rule with him when we first moved in. I was like, if the door is closed, that means don't come in. If it's open, it means you can come in. But like, obviously I need privacy at certain times. And he wouldn't honor that boundary. He would come in when the door was closed. He just would barge in. And there were certain times where I would even be like about to get in the shower and I was like naked, and he would come in and like yell at me. One time he even backed me into a corner and yelled at me, and this was towards the very end of the relationship when I started to realize it was abusive. But I was like, I had no privacy, and I was always ready for him to barge into a room at any given time. When I would wear makeup or do my hair, he would like make comments about it, and say like, ooh, who are you getting ready for? Or, wow, like what's all this for? And just act really insecure about me dressing up or putting on makeup. So it made me, even though he wasn't telling me don't wear this, don't wear that, don't put on makeup, like it made me not want to put effort into my appearance because I thought that I just didn't want these comments made to me. And so I just slowly over time kind of just started complying and not doing my hair and makeup. So there was this workout class that I started taking, and it was a women's only workout class, and I had to be very specific to him about it. This is women's only, like whatever. He wouldn't tell me not to hang out with men, but he was his energy would shift. So I just stopped wanting to put myself in situations around other men. And so I started taking this women's HIIT class in the town we were living in. And we lived in this very remote town in Colorado, and there wasn't a lot to do. So there weren't many options, and this was like one of the only options of a workout class I could take. And I was so excited that it was starting, and I went to the class, and I got there, and the instructor was a guy, and my heart sank. I was like, oh no, like I freaking hope that he doesn't ask me specifically like who the instructor is. I hope that there's no way he finds out that it's a guy, because I was so scared he wouldn't want me to go to the class anymore. And if you've never been in a dynamic like this before, you're going to think like, why would you let someone control you that way? But it happened so slowly. This was year 7 of our relationship. This was the last year of our relationship, and he slowly conditioned me over time to be this way. And it got to this point really, really slowly, and I didn't know any different. And he had me really isolated, so I wasn't sharing my concerns with family and friends because he was monitoring like my phone, he was monitoring my conversations, and so I had no one to talk to, and I just blamed myself. A lot of the time he didn't want to hang out with me, so I would go hang out, do something by myself. He also didn't really want me to hang out with friends, so I would go do things by myself all the time. I'm very independent, so I don't mind hanging out alone. And if I would go like while he was doing something, like if he was asleep, he would sleep in really, really late to like noon on the weekends, and I wake up around like 8. We have a dog, so I would get up and walk her, and I would be like living my whole Saturday before he was even awake. And if I was out of the house before he got up, and like while he was getting up, he would text me and like be mad that he didn't know where I was. So I had to always keep him updated on where I was going, what exactly I was doing. Most of the time I was literally on a hike by myself. He had my location, and he could look up where I am, but that wasn't enough. He wanted me to be checking in with him at all times. Always ruined my birthday, always ruined holidays. Valentine's Day especially was the worst. He told me that I expected too much. He would give me silent treatment on those days. Or if I could kind of convince him to do something for me, he would make this huge deal about it. The last birthday that I spent with him was my 30th birthday, and I wanted to take a ceramics class. And so I asked him to call the place. I was like, can we go take this he asked me, what do you want to do for your birthday? And I was like, I want to go take this ceramics class. Will you call the studio and, book a class for us too? And he was like, yeah, okay. And he had to call the place a few times. I guess the guy wasn't answering, and he made this huge deal about how it was so much effort to make this phone call, and it was so time consuming. Just made this big fuss about it. And then on the day of, he was just so rude to me on my birthday. He was so mean to me always. First few birthdays were different. I think this happened slowly over time as he started resenting me more and more. After I was in too deep and we were already married, that I wasn't gonna just be like, okay, you're treating me wrong, I'm gonna leave. It was, our whole lives were intertwined, and I was very committed, and I wanted to make it work. He used to tell me that I talk really loud and that I'm always acting differently around other people, and that I would be putting on a performance in front of others, but really that's just my natural personality, and I felt safer when there were other people around, so I was able to actually be myself. Whereas when it was just me and him, I kind of shut down because he was so mean to me when it was just us two. Whereas when we were with people, he was obviously way nicer to me. And I thought that was his natural personality, and the way he was treating me at home behind closed doors, I thought that was my fault, because I just thought I was annoying, like he was telling me I was. He just made me think that I acted so differently in front of other people than I did at home. And meanwhile, he is the one who was acting differently out in public versus at home, but he was projecting that onto me. He didn't want me to nap. He also kind of didn't want me to go to bed early, and he wanted to control my sleep. Now I realize that's an actual sleep deprivation tactic to be able to control me, but I would need to take a nap, and I would go into our bedroom during the day and go take a nap, and if he found me, he would wake me up. So I started trying to kind of either nap when he wasn't home, or I would try to hide it. And when we both worked remotely for the last 2 years of our relationship, and I would close my office door and take a nap and pretend I was in a meeting, so that he wouldn't come in and wake me up. And that's the only way that I could nap, because otherwise he would wake me up. And he would do the same thing in the car. He hated when I fell asleep in the car if he was driving. He didn't want me to sleep. He always undermined my accomplishments, and it felt like he was in competition with me rather than cheering me on. I got the job that I was working at the last 2 years of our relationship. It was a tech job, and I had switched over from teaching into tech. When I got the job, I was so excited, and he kind of would undermine it and be like, oh, well, it's just easy for you to get jobs. It's harder for me. It's easy for you. And when I started the job, I was really happy, and I was like, this feels like a great fit for me right now. It feels like I'm using the skills that I naturally have, and feels like I'm gonna learn. He would tell me, it's just the beginning, it's just the honeymoon phase of the job, so it all feels good in the beginning, but just know that it's not gonna stay that way. And I would get sad, and he would be like, what? I'm just being realistic. He wanted to bring me down at all times. I'm a dancer. I grew up dancing, and I dance now. But in our relationship, he hated when I danced. And so if we were at weddings, even our own wedding, he didn't want me to dance. And he would either give me dirty looks if I was dancing, or I would, ask him hey, is it cool if I go dance? He would say yes, but then I would be out dancing with friends, and I would always make sure I was only dancing with other girls, or by myself. And he would just be giving me dirty looks, or giving me silent treatment later, and just having this angry energy towards me when I went to see him again. So I stopped dancing Anytime I was on my phone, he would ask what I'm doing. So he would ask who I was texting, what we were talking about. So I slowly kind of stopped keeping in touch with people because it was exhausting to have to explain what every conversation was. And, you know, I have friends from elementary school that I would be texting, and we have a million inside jokes, and we're basically family. And I didn't want to have to explain what we were talking about. I kind of stopped going on my phone, and I just was like, you know, it's probably good that I'm not on my phone anyway. Like, I'll take up something else. And I ended up taking up painting, and I got pretty good. I was like painting a lot all the time. And then when I started painting, he told me that I was too focused on painting, and that he feels like we don't hang out anymore because all I do is paint. Literally, I couldn't do anything. He accumulated credit card debt when we were married, which we were both liable for, even though our finances weren't combined. And he never told me about it. I just had a gut feeling that there was something off, and I forced it out of him, and ended up finding out that he accumulated $15,000 in credit card debt that we were both liable for, that was in both of our names. And I got really upset, and this was the last straw in the marriage, when I started to realize, like, okay, this is a real tangible reason that I can leave him. I can explain this to people. The night that I found out about the credit card debt, that was the biggest crash out I've ever seen, and he freaked out, and he totally blamed it on me and shifted the blame back to me, saying, like, you have no idea what I've had to deal with being with you. You were so flirty with other men at the beginning of our relationship, and I have had to put up with so much. And he ended up changing the subject and talking about how I'm really difficult to be with, and tried to flip the blame on me. At this point, I was finally starting to see, wait a minute, this makes no sense. And I was starting to get clear-headed about it and getting ready to leave the relationship. If I ever brought up feelings to him, like how I was feeling, he would say, "You're constantly criticizing me." And he also called me man, and I hated it. He would be like, "You're exhausting, man." I hated it. It made me so mad. If we got invited places, as you know, into social situations, I was scared to tell him because I knew he wouldn't want to go, and I didn't want to sit at home with him every night for the rest of my life. And I was like, can we go to this, party that we were invited to, or can I go to this party? And he would throw a huge fit the whole week leading up to it. He would maybe say he would go, and then the day of he would freak out and be like, "No, I'm not going." He just never wanted to be around other people, and it completely isolated me. One of the main things we did together all the time was hiking, and he was specifically very, very mean to me on hikes, and he would be giving me the cold shoulder, he'd be walking ahead of me, or making rude comments to me, or just having a really bad energy, and it was the worst. He also sent really long messages. He would send really long messages on our work chat system when we first started dating. They were always so confusing that I didn't even know what he was saying, but all I knew is they made me feel horrible, and I would cry. I would have to leave work to go on a walk during lunch and cry and then come back. I thought I thought I was doing something wrong. He made it all about me, and he made me think I was really difficult to be with. So I genuinely thought I was broken. I thought I was broken. I thought my brain was broken. And I started to think oh, I'm so lucky that he's putting up with me, and so lucky that I have someone who's actually willing to deal with me. He would send me really long texts as well. I shared all the emails that he sent me on TikTok after we got divorced, and that was his specialty, was just really long paragraphs, which I think is genuinely a red flag in itself. I couldn't explain why to other people, but the relationship just felt so difficult. It felt so hard, and I blamed myself. He blamed me, and I thought it was my fault. I thought that relationships were just hard, but I couldn't explain why it was hard. It was just so hard, and I would cry all the time. All the time. He made me think that I was causing fights and causing arguments and causing drama. So I was like, I guess I am. Something's wrong with me. He also had like really specific obsessions that he would obsess over, and like that's all we could do. That's all we could talk about. That's all we could do. The first one was hiking 14ers in Colorado, and he wanted to go hike a 14er like every weekend. And he would get mad if I like didn't want to, which these are like really long, really strenuous hikes. And a lot of the time I didn't want to go because it's exhausting. And he wanted to wake up at like 3 a.m. and go on this hike. And I'm like, I just don't really, that doesn't sound like what I want to do. A lot of the time I would just do it anyway. I love the outdoors, so sometimes I wanted to do it genuinely, but doing it with him wasn't fun because he was so mean to me on hikes, or he would just like not talk to me the whole time, and so I didn't want to go, but that's all he cared about. There were a few times where we went on these 14ers that we got like towards the top, maybe halfway, and I like got really dehydrated and wanted to turn around, and he got so mad at me. He got so mad at me that I wanted to turn around, but I was like, we had gone rafting the day before, and I was like, I'm literally so dehydrated. I feel like I'm gonna pass out, and I just can't make it to the top of this mountain. And he was so livid, and he would hold that against me all the time. After his hiking obsession, he became obsessed with photography and revolved his whole life around it, landscape photography. So he wanted to go out, usually at night. He wanted to do night pictures. That was like his favorite, or blue hour. He loved blue hour, and he would go take photos at night, like every night, which I was happy with because then I could be home alone. But he would get mad at me that I like never wanted to come with him. I'm like, I don't want to sit in a freezing cold car at the top of the mountain while you're taking photos and not talking to me. Like, that doesn't sound fun at all. There were some days where he would completely refuse to acknowledge my existence and my presence, and he would literally not make eye contact with me. He would walk by me and he would not make eye contact with me for the whole day. And it was so dehumanizing. It made me feel like I just literally didn't matter and I was completely insignificant. He would disappoint me all the time, as you can tell, and if I looked disappointed, he would get mad. He'd be like, why do you look so disappointed? And like in an angry way, so that I didn't feel safe to say like I am disappointed. So I would have to convince him that I wasn't disappointed and be like, not disappointed, everything's okay, like that's just my face. And he would get so mad at me. He'd be like, you're disappointed and you're lying to me that you're not disappointed. But then if I told him I was disappointed, he would get really mad that I was disappointed. So it was a lose-lose. I slowly started to just lose all my confidence. I thought that I was ugly. I thought that I was fat. I thought I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Like, I just wasn't myself anymore. I've always been a really confident person, but I completely lost all sense of self, all sense of confidence in that relationship. If I ever put effort into my outfits, he would also make comments, especially if it was like a feminine outfit. He would be like, whoa, like you're really dressed up. So it just made me like, I didn't want to have those comments, even though they were jokes. I just didn't want those comments, so I would kind of dress in ways that I knew he wouldn't comment on. For the first few years of our relationship, he convinced me that he was really generous, really honest, and really trustworthy. So when later in the relationship, when he started to lie to me and he started to take money from me, or he started to accumulate credit card debt, I never would have thought he would lie to me, because I was so convinced he was like the most honest to a fault person in the world. And he convinced me of that for years before that he started like taking money from me. He would also talk negatively about my family members, and make me think that my family wasn't as great as I thought they were. And it made me distance from my family. I'm not saying my family is perfect, but it definitely severed our relationship a little bit, and it made me see my family differently. because of the things he would say about them. He would say it about my friends too, and it just isolated me even further. He would recount memories differently than me, and it was so insignificant and subtle in the beginning that I just thought, oh, I guess I remembered that a little bit differently. Like really small, stupid details. And he did that slowly over time so that when he could start changing what happened in like a bigger event, I believed him because I was like, you're right. I was like, oh yeah, like I just have a really bad memory. He never let me drive. He always wanted to drive. He said he didn't feel safe when I drove, but then there were times where if he got really angry while he was driving, he would like speed really fast and drive erratically, to the point where I feared for my life. He physically backed me into corners a few times. He never hit me, but he would really intimidate me. He told me all the time how we are so much better off than all the other couples. Like, we like each other way more than all the other couples do, and everyone else is just like fighting all the time, and we're so lucky that we get along so well and enjoy each other's company so much. And I believed it. And even when we were in a group setting with other married couples, he would make comments, make jokes later in the evening after we weren't with them anymore about me vibing with one of the guys, or like he would be like, oh, like you talked to that guy a lot, and just little comments that I was like, oh, did I? Like maybe that was inappropriate, I don't know. So once we were at the end of our relationship, I was scared to even like make eye contact with other men in public because I was scared he would call me out, or think that I thought I was like maybe doing something wrong. I know it's really hard to understand if you haven't experienced something like this before. The cycle of abuse like is designed to suck you in and keep you there. So it wasn't always bad. There were plenty of amazing times, really good times, and times where he was on his best behavior and that I felt very loved and I felt very seen. And I got glimpses of a partnership that I wanted, that I always wanted. And, you know, it made me believe that I had it in him and that all the problems that were happening were my fault and they were things that I could fix on my own. He changed my brain chemistry. I have been out for 1 year and 7 months, and I am truly the most fulfilled and the happiest I've ever been since leaving this. And when I was in this relationship, I needed to hear about coercive control, and I also needed to hear that it was going to be okay on the other side and that there was another way for me to live outside of him, and that there's more to life than that. And so I want to be that example for other people. It did change my brain chemistry, but it also gave me a different perspective on life. It just made me really enjoy the simple things and the small things and my freedom and my autonomy. So subscribe to my channel, follow me on TikTok and on Instagram, and I will see you guys in the next video.